Okay, so today I'm going to be demoing how to make a perfect cube out of slab. So this is the demo from a couple of years ago. So I'm going to show you kind of the beginning stages, and then I'm going to do a time lapse for the rest so you don't have to sit and kind of watch me do everything. Plus the slabs will need a day to set up in order to be, strong enough to be building them up. So that's another thing as well. But I'm gonna try to do it today. Well, we'll see if they'll work. So I'm starting with some nice wedge clay. I can squeeze it in between my hands, and that's what you want to do to start after you've wedged it, is kind of make it a little bit thinner so that when you go to roll out the slabs with your roller or with your little test tube, you're not rolling like a giant piece of clay like that. So remember to add water onto it if you see any cracks as you are rolling the slab. And so you're just gonna roll a little bit, and then you're gonna pick it up, flip it over. The main reason why you wanna do this is because, let me stand up for a minute. You don't want it to stick to the table, and you also wanna kind of keep an eye on the thickness of the clay, make sure it's not getting too thin, and so peeling it off each time kind of helps you to ensure that. And notice I'm kind of just like pushing out. I'm not just rolling in one particular space. And honestly, water every time. The fabric swatch, the rolling pin, they all absorb a decent amount of liquid from the clay. So for the slabs, you again want to stick with kind of that pinky thickness. You really want to make sure not to go too thin with these because they will kind of flop down, and they're not going to be as secure for you to build your cube. And like I said, I am going to try to at least attach maybe 2 or 3 of the pieces today, just so you can kind of get a hang for that. So I am going to keep mine a little bit on the thicker side. So if you were to take your ruler and measure it, should be anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch, but no thicker ever than 1/2 of an inch. So that seems good. Again, it's not thicker than my pinky finger. So the cube that we're making is gonna be 3 by 3 inches. So I'm gonna try to fit as many as I can within here. I'm gonna try to get at least 2 to 3. You will need your paper clip tool or your knife tool, something to kind of make guidelines and mark it with. So again, I always say measure twice, cut once. I'm gonna see if I can get 2 out of this end here. So I'm kind of marking it at the 3 inches across, and I'm gonna go 3 inches up as well. And again, I'm trying to do 4. So, and again, you're trying to keep the ruler parallel to get those measurements there. This end could use a little bit more clay. So I'm just gonna kind of see if I can redistribute to get myself up to, just barely there, to 6 inches. So again, just giving myself some little guidelines. It can be really frustrating to cut them out and then them not turn out the way that you want. So that's why I always say kind of mark some things off before you cut, because having to recut them is incredibly annoying. So like again, after I rolled it, these guidelines moved. So I'm just kind of remeasuring those. That one looks good. Okay. So I'm gonna cut just a couple of them just for the sake of time. So again, there's one here. Actually, I'm gonna cut one and then show you how you can kind of use it as like a guideline. So drawing that, holding the ruler down to kind of draw your tool across will help keep a straight line, and making sure to hold it at a right angle is what's gonna give you that nice clean edge. And then just again, trying to keep things parallel as you're cutting them as well, so that you don't have a cube that is off, is very important. So again, I'm keeping this parallel to here. I'm always checking my measurements as I go. Okay, so we've got 1 3x3 inch square. And what you can do is kind of take this and use it as a guide for your other ones. So that's one way to do it. Since I've already created my measurements though, I'm just gonna kind of use those. So I'm just gonna set this off to the side. And again, I'm double checking these as I go, trying to make sure that they're as straight as possible. So for your cube, you are gonna need 6 total slabs. And you need to cut them out one day and then attach them the next day is the best rule of thumb. Again, all these demo videos I am doing in one sitting just for the sake of getting it done for you, but you will have, you know, a week to do it. Okay, so there's my second one. And then you can kind of check them. Do they look like they're the same size? Yes, so we're on a good roll. Let them set up separately though, and let them sit flat so that they can kind of start setting up and getting to be leather hard. If you keep them stacked on top of each other, they can and will either stick together and they just stay soft, which is not what you want, because the slabs, you're wanting them to be a little bit stronger in order to build them up. Okay. So, and again, notice that I'm measuring every single step as I go. I'm not ever winging it. I'm always using my ruler, you know, as I go. And again, if these are a little bit off, it's okay, because we are gonna bevel the edges, which I'll show you in a minute. And then kind of remeasure. So if something like that happens, don't worry about it. Okay, 3 and 3. Okay, so I've got 4. I'm just gonna kind of put my scrap off to the side for a minute. And now I'm gonna show you kind of the beveling edges. So if I were to take these and stack them right now, if I stack them on the outside, we're gonna start running out of room. Again, this isn't gonna totally fit because you're gonna have these gaps, right? If I stack them on the inside, they're not going to fit either because it's gonna go kind of over the edge, if that makes sense. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bevel or make kind of an angle at the edge of all of the slabs just by taking your wooden tool and kind of, again, sliding it at an angle to create like a 45-degree angle. So think about if 90 degrees is straight up, 45 is half that, so just split the difference. Again, you gotta have water on this or it's not gonna take, okay? It's easier to do just on the table, okay? And I'm gonna do it on another one so I can show you kind of how those would line up. Again, notice how flimsy these are, which is why the goal is that you let them set up. Again, attaching this today, it's super, super wobbly. Okay, so notice I've beveled this edge. You're gonna bevel all the edges of all the squares. Beveled this edge, and now they line up perfectly, right? Create that nice little seam there. Oops, okay. As opposed to if I was gonna take this and this, okay, again, I either have to go on the inside or the outside, okay? So I'm gonna do a couple of these, and then I'm gonna show you kind of how to score, slip, smooth them, just for the sake of the demo, but then I will let these kind of set up and continue with it tomorrow, let's say, once they have become leather hard. Okay, but, so let's say day 1 that you cut them out, make sure to bevel them that same day so that they don't set up and get leather hard, and then you're unable to make this kind of adjustment, okay? So starting with these 2, I've now kind of given the edges to all of these a nice angle to both, and now I'm going to attach them. So of course the 3 S's, score, slip, smooth. So first I'm gonna score with my little plastic knife. So I'm scoring along this edge and I'm gonna attach this. So I'm scoring along this edge as well. My trusty slip container, painting a little slip onto both of those, okay? And then remember, this is not ideal because it's super flimsy, but just for the example I'm gonna show you today, okay? And then I'm gonna go and attach the 2. And the slip should hold it temporarily, okay? But it's super, super flimsy. It'll be so much easier for you to do once this is, again, leather hard. Okay, so I've scored and slipped. Now that missing link is smooth, so I'm gonna take some of my scrap clay and I'm gonna roll a coil, and I'm gonna put a coil anywhere where there's a seam, right? So anywhere there's a line where two things have been attached, for example, on the inside, you're gonna roll a coil and then smooth that in. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of turn this so you can see. So just a small-ish coil. We're gonna do one on the outside as well. But it's just enough to kind of help smooth in that little area. And you should be a pro at coils now because you rolled a bunch of them for your perfect cylinder project that you just finished. I'm gonna roll a long enough coil that I can actually do both sides, just again, for the sake of time, okay? Then you're gonna take the coil. Again, you don't want it to be too thick and you don't wanna see this coil later. This is just going to fill in the gaps, okay? So I'm gonna take the coil and I'm just gonna press it into that corner, okay? And then I'm gonna take my favorite tool, popsicle stick, holding the backside so I don't push through. You're gonna take some of that clay, let's see if I can move it in, and smooth it down onto the bottom slab, okay? And kind of smooth it across. Then you're gonna take some of the clay and kind of smooth it up onto the upright slab, okay? So by the time that you're done, then you take your little sponge, kind of give it a nice smooth. If there's any excess on the outside, you can kind of scrape it off. It should look really nice, seamless, and you shouldn't be able to see the coil. Okay, so now we need to do the one on the back side as well. So I am going to put it kind of upright so that you can see. So again, we don't want to see this seam here. So I'm going to take this coil and I'm going to press it in, and I'm holding, bracing this so I don't push it through. Press it into this seam here. Okay. And then you're gonna smooth half this way and half this way. So again, make sure you have a little bit of water. I'm just gonna put it flat so that I don't push it. So I'm smoothing some of that up onto this slab to kind of grab on, fill through that seam. Water is gonna help the clay to kind of like glide, okay? And then I'm gonna smooth some of this clay onto this other seam. Again, filling in that gap, because anytime that there's a line where you've attached two pieces of clay, that is where air can get through, causing your clay to dry and crack and fall apart, which is not what you want for optimal construction. Okay, so how does it look? Much better than before. I mean, again, it's still a little janky, but so again, notice on the outside, no seam, fully connected, kind of like a little book, actually. Or like a little chair, if you will. You could like sit here. Okay, so that is kind of what you're going to do. And then you're gonna do all four sides as well as the top. But again, notice how flimsy this is. So I'm not gonna continue any more with it today. I'm gonna cut out the rest of my slabs. I'm gonna let them all lay flat. Or you can separate them with a dry paper towel, okay? And you can kind of crisscross them like this. And then please make sure you have to cover it with a plastic bag. If you don't use a plastic bag, it will dry out, and then it's gonna be really difficult to attach. For this part, since it is still soft, just cover it in a bag. If you wanted to like buffer this a little bit to help hold it up, that would be kind of smart as well. So again, you'll have an entire week to work on this. So I will come back tomorrow with the rest of the slabs done and just kind of do a quick time lapse and show you kind of how to finish it up. And then remember, the last thing that you need to do is poke an air hole in it so that the whole thing doesn't explode. And again, so air hole, and then you have to put your name on it as well. Which I can't even see on this one because there's going to be a million of these and they're all going to look the same, right? So that is your perfect cube. It will one day end up like this. Yeah, enjoy.